Ross Atkins finally broke the silence about the Toronto Blue Jays season so far, and he had a lot to say about the Jays' struggles. He hinted at his future in Toronto, what their plans are on the deadline, and also made some shocking comments. I'm going to break all that down in this episode, as well as Bo Bichette, a trade could be incoming for him as he made a shocking comment about his future in Toronto. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the large percentage who aren't subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We produce daily Jays content. All right, so a lot to go over today. Obviously, the Jays had a huge win against the Yankees yesterday, 2 wins in a row. Vibes are okay right now. They're not bad. But yesterday was a bit of a news dump. Ross Atkins came out, spoke out, revealed a lot of things we're going to dive into, as well as Bo Bichette. It wouldn't be surprising at this point if a trade is going to happen for him, as he revealed an interesting comment about his future in Toronto. So let's start with what Ross Atkins says. There's a lot of comments to go through here, so bear with me as we go through them. But we'll start with this. Ross Atkins says the Blue Jays, who are now 36-43, now 37-43, remain focused on winning now. Jays playoff odds are at less than 5%. He said, quote, "We recognize that we don't have much time left, and beyond 2024, Atkins says the Jays are focused on winning in the following years and as long as possible afterwards." So it's interesting. So if you watched and listened to the press conference, basically what happened is he is hinting at the fact that they have no interest in selling right now, which is very interesting, a little bit concerning if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, but they have no interest in selling. Their goal, and obviously Ross Atkins is going to say this because his job is on the line. If they don't win this year, he's probably fired. If they don't make the playoffs this year, he's probably fired. So he's going to have no internal conversations about, hey, let's go ahead and sell some of our assets moving forward, because he knows that Mark Shapiro and some of the ownership will maybe come down on him pretty hard if they don't make the playoffs. But as you can see from this quote tweet here, "We recognize we don't have much time left, but they remain focused on winning now." And there's a lot more. So he says, obviously we've put ourselves in a tough spot. The fact that we are in this position squarely lies on me, and he's not ready to call the Jays sellers yet, but he says some of the positives he saw previously have been erased over the last 7 to 10 days. And to sum up the Atkins presser, expect the Blue Jays to hold out as long as possible before becoming sellers on July 30th. Not like everyone wasn't already fully aware of that. And there's a lot more comments. You're going to stay tuned. But basically, if we look at how the Blue Jays season has went so far, they're now 37-43. The past couple games have given us some glimpses of hope. They demolished the Yankees yesterday. Springer had 2 home runs. Some of the positives that we've been talking about, or that Ross Atkins have been talking about, kind of came to fruition yesterday. And these comments were before yesterday's game. But a lot of the positives that were happening before the Red Sox series 10 or so days ago, when they were 1 game below 500, those really went away for the Toronto Blue Jays, because they were at that point 1 game below 500. They were going home. They were having the Boston Red Sox come into town. If they could have won 2 or 3 of that series, they were right there fighting for a wild card spot. They would have been okay. And then they completely spiraled. They didn't even come close to winning really any of them. They lost 7 in a row, and things went in a complete downward spiral, as we all know. So for Ross Atkins to come out and say, hey, things are positive, it would have just not been true. And that's kind of what the Jays are feeling right now with that's how the fans are feeling, and that's ultimately how Ross Atkins is feeling as well, as he's literally saying it not only is the team playing bad, but it squarely relies with him. And at least he's taking some accountability, because if you look at the moves he's made, some of them have been good, some of them have been bad. A lot of it relies on him, especially this offseason. They went out, they got IKF, great signing. Justin Turner hasn't really been a good signing. Kevin Kiermaier, disastrous signing. So a lot of the moves that they made, they got rid of Lourdes, they got rid of Teoscar. And I'm not saying the Varsho trade was bad. I think it's quite good. But the fact is, it was on Ross Atkins to move on from the 2021 lineup that was the best in baseball. They didn't re-sign Semien. They traded Lourdes Guerrero Jr. They traded Teoscar Hernandez, a lot of the guys that provided offense, and they didn't address those needs in the future. They tried to shift their kind of gears by going mainly on defense, focusing on defensive-minded players. You think about Kevin Kiermaier, Dalton Varsho, all these guys, and it ultimately backfired, and the offense has become one of the worst in baseball. And you think about the path that they've taken to get here, it's at a point now where I don't know where the Jays go from here. And we've been talking about that for a long time, and he doesn't really know either, because he's in a tough spot. The position lies on him. They don't want to call themselves sellers yet, because if they ultimately do that, then they're kind of, sacrificing what they've worked for, especially with the new renovations and things like that. But fans don't care about renovations. And he was asked about improving in 2024, and he said, "We have not received many or significant number of calls asking for our players that are on short-term contracts. It's more downloading where we are from a strategy standpoint," meaning that many teams haven't called about Jimmy Garcia, about Danny Jansen, about Yusei Kikuchi, even Chris Bassett, guys who are on close or on expiring deals after this year, specifically Kikuchi and Jimmy Garcia. So if they're not getting calls, they're not going to sell any of these players for pennies on the dollar. It's just not going to happen. It's just not how Ross Atkins is going to operate, especially in a year where he needs to compete in order to keep his job. So he's not going to come out and say, hey, we're going to sell. This is the best thing to do for this team, best thing to do for the team going forward. Let's just sell. Definitely not. But at the same time, it's interesting that he gave some insight into what their potential plan could be, considering they haven't received many of these calls going forward, especially on the ones on short-term contracts. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Do you want Ross Atkins and the team to sell, retool, or buy? Obviously, the past couple games have been good for the Toronto Blue Jays, specifically last night's game against the New York Yankees. They dominated them. They were really on an upward trajectory offensively earlier in the game yesterday, but they scored 5 runs before recording 1 out or 0 outs. I think it was before 1 out. But we've seen that before. The team goes up, 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 and then they crumble and come crashing back down. And for them to sustain going up, they have to be able to not go down as much as they have been over the past few weeks and really the whole season. So it's interesting on that. And he had a lot of comments to say. So 10 days ago, we were feeling like there was positive momentum that has gone away. The fact we're in this position squarely lies with me. He expected more runs. I think everybody in the building did. And we just need to find out why that didn't happen. We believe in these hitters. We believe in these players. And at the very least, they went out yesterday and spoke for him and kind of, put his words in it, put some truth into his words and absolutely crushed the Yankees, who are in a bit of a scuffle right now. Like, as dull as the season has been, the season is not out of reach. They're still like 5.5 games out of a wild card spot. The Yankees are struggling. The Orioles are struggling. A lot of these teams are struggling. So if they can continue to make up ground in the wild card race, then maybe we'll be having a different discussion. But until we see a sustained amount of winning for the Toronto Blue Jays, then it's going to be difficult going forward for them not to have to sell, which is going to be interesting. But I want to bring up this comment here about Bo Bichette. So Hazel May spoke to Bo about the trade rumors and deadline talk. He asked whether he'd be surprised if he were moved at the deadline. No, not surprised at all, he said. So there's a little bit to go over here before we wrap up. Obviously, Bo Bichette usually gives the candid media type responses. He doesn't usually delve too much into the personal side of things. But Hazel May asked, hey, would you be surprised if you get traded? Obviously, the team is last place in the AL East. Bo Bichette has underperformed. And he was just honest. He said, absolutely not. I wouldn't be surprised. And could that mean a Bo Bichette trade is coming? Very possible. Has he spoke to Ross Atkins about it and maybe they've had internal dialogues that he's hinting to here? That's also very possible as well. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is that a Bo Bichette trade could definitely be coming. Whether it's this offseason, whether it's this trade deadline, I don't know. But what I do know is that Bo Bichette is not afraid to admit that he could get traded going forward. And it's very saddening that we've gotten to this point. Obviously, it wasn't a great day yesterday. The Jays won, which is good. Ross Atkins said they remain focused on winning. They remain focused on competing. But to have Bo Bichette, one of your star players, say he wouldn't be surprised if you're moved at the deadline, I cannot think of the last time that happened, especially paired with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. saying he wouldn't be surprised if he got traded to the Yankees, but he would, he'd be fine playing for them. So a lot of interesting stuff going on. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you think a trade is coming? Do you think the Jays need to make a move? Let us know. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.